You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
ECU, Pirate Nation, Purple and Gold family, stand to your feet, put your crossbones up, and lean side to side, yeah, and lean side to side, yeah, and lean side to side, come on, yeah, welcome to the island, man, it's crazy in here, a whole sea of purple and gold waving in here, keep a plank on the shark tank, traders beware, because we got a whole bunch of rowdy sailors in here.
You're watching the Pirate Football Playback on The Sports Objective. Join us every Sunday night on our YouTube channel and Facebook Live as we talk East Carolina football. Now, here are the guys.
Welcome to the Pirate Football Playback right here on The Sports Objective, brought to you by L&K Custom Homes. I want to thank Kevin Walker, good old KK, as he does a great job supporting our show. Give him a call, 336-688-8461. Kevin's a licensed general contractor, and I know he'll take very good care of you. Building your favorite home, no matter if you've won the lottery or not, call him today and give him a call, and you'll find out. Look at his work on Facebook as well. With us right now, we have Bubba Rosenwam. What's up, man?
What's going on, guys? Nice to get a win. The Pirates for years and years struggled against South Florida, losing 9 out of the first 10. But now we've defeated the Bulls 3 consecutive games, and certainly some things to clean up, especially after halftime. But you're never going to complain about a 20-point road win.
No doubt, Matt Semenza. I know you and our guest actually know about big victories on the road. How did it feel yesterday for you?
Absolutely. Hey, it was a good win, guys. We're sitting here at 3-2. I feel a whole lot better than I did last week after that Navy game, that's for sure. And it's always great to get a win. Like Bubba said, a 20-point win on the road is always a good thing. So happy to get back on track. Now I think we head into a really difficult part of the schedule, which I'm personally looking forward to. But, guys, very happy to have my former teammate Andrew Bays on the show tonight.
Yeah,
hey,
how are you?
Hey, boys. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
No doubt. You had you're the road analyst, if you will, for the Pirate Sports Radio Network. And I was telling you in the green room, you did a great job. Just want to get your, first of all, your thoughts on first time as an analyst for the Pirate Sports Radio Network.
Yeah, it was quite an experience. Matt and I'm sure Bubba can appreciate this, getting back on the road with the team travel and uncomfortable plane seats and crammed in and boxes of food and bus rides and the whole thing, flying out in the middle of a tropical storm out of Greenville. That was awesome. So it was a fun way to get back into it. I was honored that Jeff reached out to me in the summertime to ask me to be a part of it for the away games, to be an analyst. And I had to think about it quite a bit, but, it's a great opportunity for me. I always want to stay connected to my alma mater and to the football program. And it's a good way to do that and stay close to the program. And so it's quite a learning curve. First game, definitely some first game jitters, and a lot of my prep work I put into it. I don't think I used any of it in the first game. As those bullets got to flying, you just focused on the game and trying to, not step on Jeff's toes and do a solid job. So it was a lot of fun to be a part of that to get my first game under the belt.
Yeah, Andrew, without straying too far from the present, take us back. I'm sure this experience, as you mentioned, flying out in a tropical storm, take us back, 23 years or so to that 1999 season with everything the Pirates went through with Hurricane Floyd. And, I'm sure that made you, reflect on that a little bit.
Yeah, that came up a little bit. We talked about that a little bit in the pregame, as far as, both those teams really kind of dealing with a little bit of adversity. The Pirates obviously, travel plans get changed and going to, a different location, playing in an empty stadium, for the most part, and for South Florida to prepare for that game and be away from home and have to deal with, worrying about their own personal places being affected by the hurricane, and obviously having family members involved. There's a lot of distractions for them through that week. And, it's a situation where those coaches, I know Coach Logan, when we were faced with that during Hurricane Floyd, we had just played University of South Carolina in Columbia, and we were all ready to go home, but we didn't know what that would look like with the hurricane rolling through. And Coach Logan came in after that South Carolina win in the locker room and said, buckle up. We're not going home. We're going to stay here, and we're going to be here for the next week. And we're going to prepare for the University of Miami right here. And so, adversity hits you right in the face. You don't know what that's going to look like. You don't know what that week's going to look like. And it was definitely different. But the coaches, I think where I was kind of going with is the coaches tried to get you in that daily rhythm and that daily routine that you're used to. As football players are wanting to get into that routine, your daily workout, your daily practice, your daily film study, your meals, all of that. Just kind of, they were really struggling to try to get us into that routine. And it didn't take long for players to start complaining about not having underwear and the food sucking and different things. And, Coach famously gave us a speech, that basically just went with don't be the B word. And, he said, there's a lot of other people that are facing adversity. You guys are sitting in a hotel and are complaining that you don't have fresh underwear. You've got square meals, and, you're playing college football. You don't have it too hard. So, he hit us in the face with reality, and we got about our week, how we did it. And so I felt for South Florida. I know that, that was a different week for them and a lot of distractions. And that was a tough thing for them to come off of a big Louisville loss and be faced with that, having to play East Carolina, at a secondary site like FAU. So it was tough. It was absolutely a tough week for them, no doubt.
No doubt about it. And with a few minutes we have left, I know you're waiting to cook some steaks on the grill, so the family's waiting. So we don't want to monopolize your time. Talk about the game. Pirates win 48-28. Finally, Andrew, we have a road game. And I want to say this too, by the way, I love Kevin Monroe. He's been so good to us since we started the show, but I don't know if I want him to come back because you know why? You're 1-0 and you have a chance to – I tell you what, if you win and we'll have to talk about that. You went to Tulane with Andrew being the analyst. I don't know. We'll have to talk to Kev.
Yeah, that Tulane's going to be a tough one. But, that South Florida team, I think you guys, I know when doing my game prep, I went back. I wanted to see what kind of football team, I've watched a little bit of that Louisville game and watched some highlights, and it was a train wreck for them. They had some significant injuries on the offensive side. I went back, watched the Florida game, and it was a completely different football team. And I think Coach Houston and that coaching staff was expecting to see what that South Florida team was when they played the University of Florida, and they were, an offensive threat. Bohannon was moving the ball not only with the feet but with his arm, and they put it to Florida. They should have won that game. Bohannon threw a interception. They had the lead, and they were driving, and Bohannon threw a interception late in that game, and Florida capitalized on it to win that game in the Swamp. And what we saw Saturday with South Florida, they came out in the first half and looked exactly like the team that was playing the University of Louisville. They, if I recall, there was 4 drives that were 3 and outs, and they had another drive in the first half that resulted in a fumble. And they couldn't get anything right in the first half. And the Pirates capitalized on that, and they went into shark in blood infested waters, and they piled on. And kudos to the Pirates taking advantage of that, and putting points on the board. I mean, Holton Ahlers was pretty much unstoppable in the passing game with C.J. Johnson just lighting it up. but he had his pick. For whatever reason, South Florida insisted on going man on man in man coverage, and the Pirates continually won those battles. I know they were just about 100% on fourth down conversions. Looking back on some of those third down and fourth downs, we were seeing Pirate wide receivers that were wide open and soft coverage with some easy first down pickups. You flip to the second half in South Florida, all of a sudden you start seeing that team that played the University of Florida. They come out and they start moving the ball around the field and giving the Pirates secondary some fits. So it was interesting to see, Coach Scott down there in South Florida, he's trying to build that program back, and he's got some players, he's got some talent, but he can't quite, put four quarters together for that football team. So it'll be interesting to see what that team looks like in the future, but kudos to Holton Ahlers. Kudos to CJ Johnson. That connection was solid all day with 197 yards for CJ Johnson, 4 touchdowns, and Holton Ahlers just lighting it up with 6 touchdowns. I love to see it. It was great to see it firsthand. They started to crack defensively in that second half, but I think, that defensive stand down on the goal line was a pivotal point in that game as far as just locking it down. So it was good, great win for the Pirates.
Yeah, that goal line stand, and then in the first half, the play that we made where we chased Bohannon down and stripped it, and forced a turnover there with USF going in. That really helped us establish that momentum we had, or continue on and retain that momentum early in the game. And it's Julius Wood who had the big stick against NC State on the 4th and 1 play, coming up big once again.
Yeah, absolutely. And kudos to Cohen Shakeweiler and that offensive line. They struggled in pass protection against Navy. Navy defensive game scheme and game plan, were to knife the gaps and really kind of put some pressure on Holton and disrupted that passing attack. And Coach Shankweiler and the pass pro, I would say they answered the bell. They couldn't really get anything on the ground. I know Gunn came in late in that game and he was able to post some yards, which was good late to ice that game. But I was happy to see the offensive line shore up that pass protection.
No doubt about it. And Andrew, I know we got to let you go. Will you have any final thoughts? And hope to have you back on. Maybe you can real soon, maybe next week or whenever you have time. Anytime,
boys. Anytime. I'm interested to see, if we're able to continue. I know, Matt, you've been vocal with us as far as Donnie K, getting a little bit more screen games going, getting Holton involved in the rushing attack. And I think, that was one of my keys to the game was Holton taking advantage of his feet. We hadn't seen it much early in the season, and he had some first down opportunities. I know Holton spoke about it this week, last week on that drive late against Navy when he threw his interception. He regretted that. He thought that he should have put that on the down on the ground, run for the first down, and kept the ball and protected going in for that lead. And I'm happy for the boys. Happy to see a little bit more wrinkle to Donnie K's offensive scheme, and interested to see what they're going to scheme up for Tulane.
No doubt about it. It's going to be great. And I know Matt. I know with Matt and Bubba, we've been working really hard, guys. Right, we're doing anything we can to say, Donnie K, please. If it's Mike Houston, Donnie K, whoever it is, please stop doing the conservative game plan, because when you play not to lose, you lose. I'm very aggressive, and I thought that was great in the first half where they were doing more things that we wanted to see the previous week. And now that you're playing, I'll say this before we let you go, Andrew. If you play conservative against Tulane, we're going to get beat handily. We can't afford to play. Some people are calling it playing scared. I call it playing conservative. That we're not going to be able to make it if I just don't see how we can win playing conservative against them, especially when we have the weapons we do. We need to use everything and anything to beat them.
Yeah, no question. We've got a lot of. That's one thing. With Keaton Mitchell, kind of being on the shelf last week for that game, and really us not knowing what the status of Rajay Harris is going to be moving forward. I feel comfortable with our depth. I mean, Marlon Gunn's going to get more opportunity moving forward, I believe, and we've got a lot of offensive threats, two stellar tight ends, in a receiving room that's pretty deep. So I feel good about the offense all the way around. No
doubt. Well, Andrew, thank you so much as always for coming on, and we'll let you enjoy those steaks. I like mine medium, by the way. And,
you got it. Next time I see you.
All right, man. Have a good one. Appreciate you.
Boys. Thank you.
Enjoy the steaks, buddy. Good to talk.
Have a good one,
buddy. We'll
see
you guys.
See you later. Bye. All right. Appreciate Andrew coming on. I know that he had obviously his family is over, and he was kind enough to come on. And Matt, gosh, I was, usually for me personally, I'm not the guy that's upset. You're usually the guy in our group text that's the upset one. You said that I had more positivity, but yesterday I was just so upset before the game. And then when I knew like what I saw in the first half is exactly what we needed to do. And I'm glad that we really opened it up. I know Bubba was giving me a hard time because I'm like, I was talking about the running game. He said, man, they're throwing it a lot on first down. I was like, I know, but like, my thing is what I was worried about. I want to get you guys' take on it. For me, how much of it was in the second half of USF finally settling down after all they went through with the coaching adjustments. But I was really hoping to see coaching adjustments from our side too. And not to say that you can put on that kind of intensity for 60 minutes, but the one thing that came to mind in the first half, as I said, I pray to God it's not a tale of two halves. Maybe I jinxed it, Matt and Bubba, but I just want to get y'all's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we just played phenomenal in the first half. We were playing out of our minds offensively. You knew there was going to be a little bit of a letdown coming out of halftime. That's just kind of like human nature. There's always an ebb and flow into every game. But I will, yesterday I saw a few things. I mean, you got to give USF some credit for that second half. I mean, they came out of halftime very motivated. They do have a pretty good offensive line when you watch them. I thought they really held up well against our defensive line. They gave Bohannon protection. And he's the type of guy, he's a dual threat. So, there were several times where we had him in situations where it was third and long and, or second and medium, and he was able to make plays with his feet to beat us. So, I give some credit to USF, but I just think we had a little lull coming out of halftime, and, it just gave them an opportunity to get back into the game. Unfortunately. And I know, I know for a fact our defensive staff, just knowing how coaches think, are not going to be very pleased with that, Dave and Bubba, and I'm sure they'll go to work on it, this week to make sure it doesn't happen again.
People were talking about Bubba, the running back room, about with obviously it's a concern with Harris and Mitchell. To me, I was going to pitch this to you, Bubba. To me, the frustration for me is that apparently, with Bailey, is it Malkovic? He left the program, unfortunately.
Bailey Malovic.
Malovic, I'm sorry. I always get his name wrong. Sorry, Bailey. But right now, we only have 6 guys that are playing on offensive line. I didn't realize that, but that's a concern of mine because our line has been playing pretty well. But, man, when you had Foote go down yesterday, I was like, oh, my goodness. But thankfully, I think he's okay. It was just he was shaken up a little bit. That's part of the game. But we got to hold our breath. We have I'll say this, and then, Bubba, you take it. For me, I feel like if we can keep the injuries down on offensive line, we have a shot to at least be in the championship game, if not win it. I'm very confident on our team. But, man, that scares me to think it's not the play of the offensive line. It's the depth of the offensive line that really worries me.
Yeah, prior to yesterday, like you were saying, there had been games where we had pretty much played the starting five every single snap, or maybe 6 guys. Yesterday we did play 7. You saw Parker Moore. I think he played just over 20 snaps, and then you had Ben Johnson, the transfer from Marist. He played 7 snaps, and Johnson was playing for Isaiah Foote when he went down. The good news is that Isaiah Foote was able to come back in, and then obviously Parker Moore, I believe, graded out pretty well in those 21 snaps that he played. But as far as the offense as a whole, granted, they were going against an entirely different defense than they were last Saturday. Navy is so much better on that side than South Florida is, there's no doubt. But at the same time, just the way we went about our business, and yes, when you're gaining yards and having explosion plays like we had from Ahlers to C.J. Johnson, it's easy for people to say, well, they opened it up. And while all that is true, the reason I feel much better about it, besides our production, is just because we were doing, in my opinion, what we needed to do to win the football game and be more aggressive, not just the shots down the field against the man coverage that South Florida was playing, as Andrew Bays referenced. We were getting the ball in Ryan Jones and Shane Calhoun's hands much more frequently and in a variety of ways, be it on jet sweeps or Ryan Jones actually, lined up in the backfield, a bit of a quick pitch there. I want to say it was maybe late first half or early second half. So you saw Holton with some of his play action stuff, and I know Matt will speak more specifically about this on the RPO. The RPO game, there was a time in the first half where it was a read play and he pulled it and had a nice 7 or 8 yard gain at least. And then there was one in the second half where, where the defender came up a bit, and then, Ryan Jones was open over the middle. So all those things, and there at the end of the first half, it'd have been easy 34-7 to not be aggressive. I love the aggressiveness that we showed with that 2-minute offense. Not only did we try to score, but we had a nice tempo about things, showed a sense of urgency, and love that. And then I know some folks were thinking, just because we only scored 7 points after halftime, that we took a foot off the gas. And yes, the execution wasn't as good as it was in the first half, but I love the way we handled the way we were calling plays. It wasn't just 3 runs and punt. We did a good job of, play action on first down at least twice there in our first 2 possessions. And I just felt much better about things, not only because we scored 48 points, but just the way we were going about our business offensively.
Yeah, I did too, Bubba. And, you could definitely see that there were some new wrinkles added for this week's game plan. Personally, I was very critical of the offensive play calling against Navy. Listen, coaches are going to have bad days just like players. It happens. And that was not our best day calling plays. But yesterday, I really liked some of the things I saw. And you touched on a few of those things, Bubba. I think one of the things that the offense has been sorely missing, and I can't stress it enough, is when Holton has the ability to keep the ball, whether it's an RPO or if it's a read option look, to be able to keep the ball and make plays with his feet. And now understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that has to be a 25-yard gain, but even if it's a 3, 4, 5-yard gain, what you're doing is you're making the defense adjust to that. And when you don't show it, when you don't put it on film, it allows the defense to basically just ignore the quarterback and tee off on the running back. So then it starts to hurt your running game. So what I've been saying all along is give Holton the ability on whether it's RPO or, if it's a true RPO scheme, whatever it is, give him the ability to keep the ball 2 to 3, maybe 4 times a game max, because you don't want him taking too many shots. But what that does is it makes the defense adjust. Okay. And I liked how we did that yesterday. We really haven't done it this year at all. And he was able, I think that was a 3rd and 1, Bubba, where Holton was able to make a play with his feet and get the first down. And then we were able to call plays off of that as the game went on. A really nice play action look to Ryan Jones. So I like that we put it on film. I'd like to see it even more, but that's a good start.
No doubt. And Andrew Bayes referenced the presence of Marlon Gunn yesterday, and he was talking about him coming in toward the end. It was really actually early on in the game, because we played 73 offensive snaps, and 42 of those went to Marlon Gunn. And Rajay Harris, who did suffer some sort of leg or knee injury later in the game, he played 31 snaps. So that was impacted by that, but it was more a situation. It was Marlon Gunn was playing well before that ever occurred, and that was something that did not shock me, because Coach Houston said they were very close to using Marlon against Navy. In retrospect, they probably wish they would have, but it's certainly understandable. From the outside looking in, not knowing exactly how well he was picking up blitzes and so forth, which is a big part of the learning curve for a running back. And yesterday, at least a few times, I zeroed in on Marlon in that regard. You saw some replays. He did an excellent job picking up a blitzing Mike Backer, and then also one time when we ran a quarterback draw, Holton unfortunately cut the wrong way, but Marlon had made a nice block for Holton.
Yeah, you have to be impressed with Marlon Gunn. He just looks like a natural player at this level. Powerful kid. Really impressed, too, with his ability to pick up the offense so quickly. And to your point, Bubba, about that quarterback draw for Holton, he did make a very nice block. Holton made the decision to go to his left. Had he gone to his right, he would probably still be running. But, that's one of the ones that happens, guys. Like, that's one of the ones you look at the film and you're like kicking yourself. Hey, why didn't I just go to the right? But to your point, Marlon made a very nice block. And there was a key first down pass play where he got about 7 or 8 yards on a little flare out of the backfield. And he was stopped short of the first down marker, but because of his power, he was able to kind of lunge forward and make a play and get the first down. So he's a guy we're going to rely on very heavily in the second half of the season.
And Marlon Gunn, like you mentioned, he brings something to the table with his combination of speed, power, and vision, everything that he offers as a running back that Rajay does not. And that's not a knock against Rajay whatsoever, because Rajay did some excellent things yesterday. And, just like Keaton Mitchell, obviously Keaton brings something that Rajay doesn't. And I think Marlon Gunn and Rajay Harris make a nice 1-2 punch. And I love to see the way you mentioned us throwing the ball to Marlon Gunn out of the backfield yesterday. And I'm trying to recall, I know he had at least a couple, if not a few catches. And then you had Rajay Harris. I love the way we utilized him in the passing game also, and he made some nice runs after the catch.
Yeah, you can tell all of our backs have slightly different skill sets, and like I really like Rajay down near the goal line when we're facing like a 2nd and goal from the 2-yard line or the 3-yard line. I think he's really good in that situation with his quick feet and he's got some power. Really like him there, and I like him catching the ball out of the backfield. And Keaton, obviously, with that speed and breakaway ability, and then Marlon, he seems like it's kind of a combination of both to me, where he's got the power, but he also seems to have really good vision to me, and he can cut really well. So we have 3 really good backs, in the stable, and I think as the season goes on, they're all going to get a lot of touches. We just hope they stay healthy. That's the main thing, Bubba.
No doubt. And as far as Marlon Gunn, Marlon had 15 carries for 61 yards with that 34-yarder there on one of our last drives of the game when we were putting things away following the goal line stand. Rajay Harris, 11 carries for 40 yards and that touchdown. And you talked about Rajay down around the goal line. That was not surprising, but awesome to see when he lowered the boom on that South Florida defender.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had quite a few plays like that yesterday where our offensive players were able to kind of lower the boom, if you will. And we saw Ryan Jones do it down near the goal line. That was an awesome play. Which kind of brings me, Bubba, to a point that really loved the way we utilized the tight ends yesterday. Our colleague here, Kyle Barber, unfortunately can't be with us today, but Kyle really made mention last week that he would love to see Ryan Jones use more in this offense. And he got his wish because Jones was used heavily. And, he really was able to make plays. And beyond, we talk about new wrinkles. I want to mention a few other things too, beyond just using the tight ends more. We saw a lot more motion in the offense, which we really haven't seen a lot this year. We saw Marlon Gunn and Rajay motioning out of the backfield into the slot. We saw Ryan Jones coming in motion. And I think what they were trying to do is maybe set up some jet sweep action with that. But that motion really creates challenges for the defense. And we didn't see it the last few weeks. So that was another little wrinkle we saw. And then, hey, hallelujah, Bubba and Dave, you know how happy I am about this, but we did see a wide receiver screen for the first time all year. And it only went for about 3 or 4 yards, but we need to have that play in the offense because there's just times throughout the course of a game where you need to be able to, have that play, in your arsenal. And so I'm just really glad we kind of added that wrinkle too. But a number of new things this week that I think Pirate fans should be really pleased about. It goes to show that our staff kind of evaluated themselves last week.
Hey, and Kyle says I am here. Kyle,
There he is.
glad you're able to join us. What were your thoughts on yesterday's 48-28 win down in Boca Raton?
Great first half, obviously. Y'all were talking about Marlon Gunn, and he's going to step up immediately. Harris got a knee injury. Who knows how bad it is? They said Keaton is week to week or day to day with a hip pointer. So you need at least one of those two back this week. If it's Harris and Gunn, or if it's Keaton and Gunn, I think Gunn can do more of the Harris type stuff in terms of he's not quite ready to he just hadn't had the experience to do all the stuff without the ball in his hand that Rajay can do in terms of pass protection and all. But I think he has the ability to learn that stuff and be very effective at that. And he's effective in the passing game, like Rajay is. It's a shame we don't throw the ball to Keaton as much as we do either one of the two backs, which indicates to me he isn't good at catching. He needs to work on that because he would be, if you utilize Keaton in the passing game more, he would be deadly. But hell of a performance by Holton. He got a helmet sticker on ESPN. Great performance by C.J. Johnson. Obviously, both of those guys had career days in terms of touchdowns. I don't know if that was a career high for Holton single game or not with yards, but I know it was for touchdowns.
For touchdowns, I believe according to the ESPN broadcast, it tied the record for touchdowns with 6. And for yardage, it's a little bit shy because you go back to Cincinnati and then also SMU, and in those games back in I guess 2019, Holton threw for right around 500.
Yeah, all of a sudden we were running the air raid. I remember that. Overall good performance. Second half left a lot to be desired on the defensive side of the ball. Can't put it much on the offense because South Florida has such long damn drives. I don't really know how many possessions we got in the second half on offense, Bubba. You can look that up, but it could not have been many.
I think it was three or 4.
It was 4. It was 4.
Yeah, and then in one of those, we're clearly just draining the clock and
right.
And did a decent job of that.
Did a good job of it. We could have been aggressive and tried to score there, but it was no need to rub it in anymore. So it did a really good job of running the clock on that last drive. That last sequence of the game, after dominating first half, second half, the defense just decided the game was over, and then the offense just didn't give any opportunities. It was good to end the game on a positive note and carry positive momentum out of that game with the win, with the goal line stand, which I thought was – I don't really think it would have made a difference in the game, but it was huge to put them away there and then to drive the field in the game with the ball in our hands. And the only reason we didn't score is because our main goal was to run the clock. That was really good football to see. That goal line stand with about 7 minutes to go, and then that was a 6-minute drive, Bubba, to run the clock out.
Yep. And like you said, I still think we'd have held on, but glad we didn't have to find out and not make things any more suspenseful. But Dave, welcome back. So
Thank you.
we were just discussing Marlon Gunn and just the presence that he made yesterday, and then obviously moving forward, depending on the status of Keaton Mitchell and Rajay Harris.
Yeah, you guys know how I've been big on him. In fact, we had heard about it's the same thing with Keaton Mitchell a couple of years ago and practice guys. We had heard about Marlon Gunn and hey, this guy is moving up the depth chart. And Matt, it's how it is with anywhere you play. You want to put your best players out there, and I really am worried about Harris guys. I'm not sure. I know the knee. Marty Fear said on the radio broadcast yesterday that out of the tent, he was icing his knee. I was hoping that he wouldn't have to. I know, Kyle, you had expressed some concerns too when I mentioned that in the group text yesterday. And for me, my biggest concern is those guys are huge. I'm huge fans of them personally and professionally. They're great guys. And what I worry about is we bring them back. I understand the significance of the Tulane game. I'm just worried about you bring them back, and what if they have a season injury, ending in injury, they hurt themselves worse, and all of a sudden we're going the second half of the season without Harris and or Mitchell.
Well, with Mitchell, a hip pointer, I don't know much about the injuries, but it sounds more like a pain tolerance thing. I don't really know if a hip pointer can get worse. It's more to do with pain tolerance, from my understanding. Bubba or Matt would be more qualified to comment on that than me, because one of them may have certainly had teammates that have. But with a knee, you do need to be careful, and they will be. If Rajay isn't ready to go, what'll probably happen, I think he bruised his knee bad against Navy, and then it happened to even worse in this game. So he'll probably get an MRI. That's my guess the first of the week, just to make sure that it is a deep bruise and nothing more. And so that'll be looked at. And then if it's a deep bruise, sometimes that's a pain tolerance thing too. But hopefully it ain't no serious than that. But when you mess with knees, there ain't a lot of in between. It's normally a minor injury or a major injury. There's ain't a lot of in between with knees, so that's scary.
Just a little more information very quickly, Matt, as far as Keaton Mitchell. I mean, he did dress out yesterday in the pregame, and there were pictures on social media, but then apparently after going through warm-ups decided he could not go and was not dressed out during the game.
Also, I would imagine, Bubba, and just me speculating, Rajay has had great games against South Florida every time we've played them, and I think they probably had a game. I think they felt confident in their offensive game plan yesterday. So I'm just guessing they thought they could win that one without Keaton.
Yep.
And so they said no need to put you through playing with pain. I'm just speculating. I expect particularly if Rajay can't go, I would expect to see Keaton this week. If not, Gunn is a talented back, but the stuff is he ready to do all the stuff without the ball in his hand? Probably not to the level of Rajay Harris. Rajay's really good at the stuff without the ball in his hand, blocking, picking up on pass protect, etc. And behind him, the other backs, the transfer from UNC, the other freshmen, they haven't played. They definitely ain't going to be ready. They may be fine with the ball in their hand, but the other stuff. So you hope one of the two, Keaton or Rajay at least, can go, so it ain't all on Gunn and back that we hadn't seen.
And something else I want to pitch to you guys, all three of you. Is it possible that it's also a possibility that both of them could see limited action and you put Gunn in, the mix and maybe some of the other guys, but you still could give them some touches to make some plays? I've also thought about that last night.
It's definitely possible. I mean, my big thing is, you always hear coaches with this old school mentality. If you don't practice, you don't play. And there are situations for that. But in this case, guys, there's no way I would let Keaton practice. There's just no way. Let him get healthy. He's not going to lose that 4.3 speed overnight. So, just limit those guys in practice as much as possible. So
Would
when
you
it's
just have him,
game
could
day,
you just have him completely no contact to practice, Matt, or just where he's
oh,
at, because he's gonna need that. It's probably good for him to run some.
absolutely. I would do, definitely light running, just to keep the wind up and your conditioning, but just no contact whatsoever. I wouldn't even consider it. And I'm sure Mike Houston feels the same about that. But hey, to your guys' point too, I mean, this highlights the need. I remember when Kamaro Edmonds was signed, I think it was this past spring. And there was a lot of talk on different, websites about, hey, do we really need to spend another scholarship on a running back? Well,
Yeah.
remember that, Dave?
Yeah, I
Right?
do.
And this kind of highlights right there the need, because we're now in a situation potentially where if Rajay and Keaton can't go, guess who's the next man up? It's going to be obviously Marlon Gunn, but Kamaro Edmonds would be the next guy. And so this is why you need to have a stable of backs.
I
Yeah,
worry more.
I was asking also, guys, is Pop McKay still in the mix? He would be after Kamara, right? 5th on the charts, I would think.
Correct. And then the true freshman need fixed.
What about the kid from UNC?
That's Kamara Edmonds.
Okay, all right. What I was going to say, Rajay worries me more than Keaton, because, like I said before, normally knee injuries are minor or major. If it's just a deep tissue bruise, it's a play with pain kind of thing. If it's anything else, ACL, MCL, torn ligaments, torn tendons, you're going to miss some time. So that's my fear with Rajay. If Keaton was almost ready to go this week, then I would think he would be ready to go against Tulane. I would think. So I think what we'll probably see is either all three or either Gunn and Keaton.
They were asking, is Edmonds a freshman? He transferred after his freshman year, right, from UNC?
Well, I bet you Bubba would be the guy, but I'm pretty sure he got some carries at UNC. So he might possibly be a sophomore, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Bubba would probably know better than us. But big back, I want to say he's about 225 pounds. He was a 4-star back out of high school. I think he was from Havelock. So highly recruited kid. So there's talent there. So he, hopefully he's ready to go if we call upon him.
I agree with you guys about worried about obviously the game speed, the game experience, but I really believe I also believe that if we have the blocking, and also if we do I can't remember which caller it was on Fifth Quarter yesterday, but he made a great point. We're known, what's our nickname, Kyle? We're wide receiver U for a reason. And he was talking about Donnie K, but wide receiver U, that's why we have that nickname. And that, in other words, one of the concerns I have, and I'll talk about another coach in a minute so you understand where I'm going, but hopefully we don't do the stubborn, we're run first, pass when we have to kind of team, when the reality is we need to make sure that we have whatever athletes we have, whatever the defense is giving. Hey, Matt, whatever the defense is giving us, that's what we need to go with. If one day, when you have Campbell and they can't stop us running, you run it. If I know that's maybe stating the obvious, but for me personally, don't be so stubborn to say we're going to have a running game. If the run is not there, it's not there. And let's do some other nice things like we have. I'll tell you one thing I want to mention too, guys, is the fact that when you have Marlon Gunn, anytime that guy touches the ball, he's dangerous. So why not work with him? Are there any plays that we could do, Matt, you think, where we could get him on the field and maybe have him touch the ball? Because when he touches the ball, he's gone. He's getting like 5 yards, it seems like, at the minimum. There was a few times yesterday when there was no blocking and there's South Florida guys, some bulls waiting to tackle him. I remember that in the game. But for the most part, if the blocking's there, he's going to make things happen.
Oh, he definitely is. He's got the vision. He's got the ability to cut. And again, I just hate to sound like a broken record, Dave, but to answer your question, the more we let Holton keep the ball in read option situations, it's going to open up the middle of the field. It's going to open up runs in between the tackles for our running backs too. It's going to stretch the field. So that would help him. And hey, maybe you get it to him on a, you outflank somebody into the boundary and you run a toss sweep and get Marlon the ball that way. I mean, there's a million ways to get him the rock, but he definitely needs his touches.
You know what I always say, Matt, and I will pitch it to Bubba. He has some numbers. Bubba, I'm going to say this real quick, but I always say let Holton be Holton. And I think the good news is they are going to let Holton be Holton. And I think he's making these decisions on his own because Mason Garcia, you've got a deep quarterback room as well that knows the offense now, where before it was just Holton like on the island. He was the only one that was ready to go as far as to play all the plays and learning the playbook.
And taking a look at some of those numbers, we talked about the day that Holton, Ahlers, and C.J. Johnson had yesterday. Holton finished with 465 yards passing, 31 out of 41 for 465, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. And C.J., he was targeted 7 times. He had 7 receptions for 197 yards and 4 touchdowns. Obviously, the 60-yarder to start off the scoring, and then the 74-yarder later in the first half. As we were driving in the opposite direction in the second quarter. And then, we did a nice job spreading it around, though. Despite CJ having 7 for 197, you had 11 catches for the tight ends. You had Ryan Jones, 6 for 84 and a touchdown. Then you had Shane Calhoun, 5 catches for 44 yards. And then Isaiah Winstead, another solid game for him, 7 catches, 73 yards and a touchdown. So, there you had 4 receivers with 5 catches or more.
Yeah, that was another thing that Kyle, I know that we talked about last week, and we've said every time Ryan Jones gets the ball, good things happen. Give him some more touches. Shane Calhoun, was great to see him, but you were talking about, I know that last week, the tight end room. We got some great tight ends, so let's open it up for them too.
Yeah, I thought about using the middle of the field more. I thought about definitely involving Ryan more, particularly. And we even gave him a running play in the backfield once. But I'll say this is an interesting thing. Things I brought up on the offense we're done this week. When you have suggested friends, my number one suggested friend for 2 days in a row was Donnie Kirkpatrick. So I don't know if he was watching the podcast and went and looked on my Facebook page and said, that dude knows what he's talking about. I highly doubt it, but I did think that was funny.
Yeah, in our group, and another group text that Bubba and I are in, they had, hey, Bubba, do you remember Tom and some of the other people? They put the picture of, it was a picture of a man, tied up. The joke was that Donnie Kirkpatrick was tied up in the hotel room and somebody else was doing the play calling.
Well, guys, one thing I love about working with you guys is we're always honest. We are very honest on the show. Last week we were critical of the play calling, but hey, this week you got to give credit, right? We give credit when it's due, and Donnie called a very good game yesterday. He bounced back, so I give him props because hey, last week I don't know how much that was Donnie or it was Mike Houston wanting to play a certain style. Right? You just don't know exactly how that's working behind the scenes, but you got to give credit this week where it's due. I mean, he called an aggressive plan. He showed new wrinkles. He got the tight ends involved. And I don't think we looked more confident and aggressive, and we weren't holding anything back. That's what you want to see.
No doubt. Hey, Kyle, when I'm going to give you credit, I know that you've talked about this team have enough talent. We've got so much talent. We could be at least, I was saying earlier in the show before you signed in, that we could see ourselves easily finishing second, which means the championship game. I know you and I agree on that. And it's if we want to get to that game, you've got to play when you always hear the same cliches all the time with so we're going 1-0 this week, but you know what? We have the talent to hang with Tulane. It's a pick'em game this week, and if we're going to win these games, then we're going to have to put all stops. We can't do the conservative play calling. It would be, I'll tell you this, it's either 2019 play calling we've seen, or it's like we're playing Alabama and we don't want to get embarrassed, so we're trying to run enough clock to try to keep it close and have a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. We're not playing Alabama. No disrespect to our conference.
Well, I think with the Navy game, I think it was three things, four things. One, I think he thought that our talent would be enough to really run the ball down their throat. And Keaton got injured. People forget about that when you look at the play calling in that in that Navy game. I know Keaton won't lighten it up before he went out, but you got to remember at some point Keaton was going to break one in that game.
Oh yeah.
So there was probably a touchdown taken off the board in that game just because Keaton was out. So I think the game plan was to keep the ball out of Navy's hands, and Navy's defense is pretty good. You know, that was one thing they weren't struggling this year was on defense, and they shut Air Force down yesterday. They lost by 3, but they shut them down. That's a damn good Air Force. Air Force is probably going to win the Mountain West this year.
They should have won that game, Kyle. They had Navy, not to just really quick to interject, Navy had the ball inside the 15-yard line multiple times and came away with no points.
Yeah, so there you go. I mean, they could have beat Air Force, and so I think Navy defensively is pretty good. So keep that in mind, everybody, and keep this in mind too with Tulane. Tulane's 4-1. Their only loss to Southern Miss, oddly enough, they got upset by USM. Their USMC coach was the OC for Fritz a couple years ago. So he knows him well. But they've had some nice wins. They beat Kansas State. They beat Houston. You said it was a pick'em, Dave. Is that the actual spread, or?
Yeah, it's like that's what I'd heard, right, guys? But this afternoon,
correct.
The line's even. Okay. You know, I think we're going to have a lot of games coming up. This next 5 games is brutal. Tulane, a game that you on paper before the season looked like an easy win, even though I thought they were going to be much improved. I didn't know they were going to be this improved. 4-1 football team. You got, after that UCF. I believe they're also 4-1 or 3-1.
Yeah, Memphis.
Memphis, yes. Well, same thing stands. They're 4-1, and they both play. Memphis plays this weekend. But my point is, Tulane, Memphis, UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, or BYU, Cincinnati. That's a tough 5-game stretch. You got 2 top 25 teams in there, and you got Tulane. Every one of those teams that we're playing coming up, our next 5 games right now only have 1 loss each one of them. So it's a very tough stretch. One of the tough stretches of football that I think we've had in a long time, and I don't think it's been thought about enough. You got 2 top 25 teams in there with Cincinnati and BYU, and then, like I said, UCF, Memphis, and Tulane all only have 1 loss. And had Tulane not got upset by Southern Miss with that win over Kansas State and with K-State, as they keep winning, and now they're winning over Houston, Tulane might be in the top 25 right now. Yep. So it's a very tough 5-game stretch. So, look, do I think we can go to Tulane and win this weekend? Absolutely. But if we don't, everybody calm down, because I think we're going to be in a lot of close games the rest of the way out. Nothing would really surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me to lose to Tulane, lose to Memphis, and beat UCF and Cincinnati. It would not surprise me. I think we're going to, as long as we can get healthy and stay healthy, I think we're going to be in all these games, but we ain't going to win them all.
Yeah, as far as Tulane, very impressed with them in that game at Houston. Obviously, Houston had been up and down as well in a bunch of close games, having lost close games to Texas Tech, and then also another one in there. So. And then they had won close games against UTSA and Rice. So yeah, with Tulane, despite that loss at home to Southern Miss, and like Kyle mentioned, they're ranked 35th this week, so to speak, according to the number of votes they're receiving and points they have in the AP poll. And they're 4-1, and in that game against Southern Miss, it was kind of one of those deals where they must not have taken advantage of some red zone opportunities or something of that nature, because I noticed on the box score that I think they were only -1 in the turnover battle, but they had outgained Southern Miss by 200 yards.
Yeah, well, you know, guys, like Kyle, when you kind of go back here for a second, you look at your point about, you know, the stretch of games coming up, and right here we have a pick'em game, right? A pick'em game against Tulane, and this kind of takes me back to one of my fears right now, and that's our field goal kicking game, because I worry that one or two of these games possibly could come down to the kicking game, and which takes us back to yesterday, fellas. Another missed extra point, and again, you know, not trying to bang on Owen Daffer, right? We all know he's a great kid, but listen, at this level, this is not high school. You can't miss extra points. You cannot miss extra points. And this is the fourth time this year, for whatever reason, whether it's blocks, you know, it's just unacceptable. We have to get it fixed. And if he can't do it, it's got to be next man up.
Yeah, not only that, but when you look at Daffer, you know what's interesting, guys, is that he missed the extra point. And if you noticed, how many times, Bubba, you're our numbers guy, was it 3 times? Did we get 2 out of 3 on 4th down? But we're going for it. And I tell you what, there's no disrespect. Even if Daffer makes every single one of them, I'm the kind of guy, like I watched the Bills and the Ravens today, and the Ravens went for it on their side of the ball. It might have been the 34. I can't remember, but that was in the 4th quarter. Hey, go for it every time on 4th down, unless it's ridiculous, like at the 20 or 30 yard line if you're on 4th and 7 or something. But we've got to go for it every time. That's my gut feeling. Go for it every time.
Well,
I got a.
We were 3 for 3 on 4th down.
Oh, 3 for 3. Good. Okay.
Now let me ask y'all this: in these situations where, like yesterday, where we were well ahead in the ball game and the game's in hand,
I know what you're going to ask.
and instead of going for it on 4th down, in those situations, why not let Daffer try a longer field goal in a no pressure situation, just see if he can hit it, give him some confidence.
I thought about that same thing, Kyle. I mean, you had a 20-point lead. At one, obviously, that was the final. I thought about that too. I think when it comes to a tight ball game, like Matt said, there's no way in the world I'm putting Daffer on that kind of pressure. I'm going for it. I like to go for it anyway. I like to roll the dice, and I tell you why. Because before, especially this year, the defense, I would have been nervous. They probably score on us. But now with that defense, man, oh man, oh man, I love our defense, and I trust our defense, and so I feel like that we have a good shot of stopping them. How about that? Another goal line stance. We even had the goal line where the fumble early in the first half that really made a big difference for that for me.
Well, I wish we had a kicker that we had confidence in to make a 50-yard field goal every time. That's a dangerous weapon. But if you're going to go for it consistently like that, and you're not going to let him try any long kicks, if we don't have, and maybe we do have, all of a sudden last year against Navy we had confidence in him to make a long kick. So I don't know, but then if you're going to do that, then be aggressive. Don't settle for a short field goal. Keep on being aggressive if you're gonna go for it. Don't get down inside the and run it every time. And not that we do that all the time, but
go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, guys, I cut out there. Oh, sorry, Kyle. Yeah, just cut out for a second. I was just going to say to your point, I mean, the one thing we don't know about Daffer and his backups in particular, and, like I would love to be at practice and observe, but obviously that's not going to happen. I live in Connecticut, but, you just don't know what they're seeing throughout the week in practice. And they drill it every day. They set up their field goal kicking unit and they practice it every single day. There's either two things happening. Number one, he's either making these field goals throughout the week and is like an amazing practice kicker and struggling in the games, or he's struggling in practice as well. And the coaching staff is now at the point where they're saying, hey, you know what? We just can't let him kick in those situations. So there's
Have y'all ever seen this in practice? I don't know. This is just a thought, and this is like a psychology thing, and it may be a terrible idea. I don't know, Matt or Bubba, if either one of you ever seen this. Have you ever seen a kicker get inside his head, and then at practice, instead of encouraging him, just have a bunch of players go just talk crap to him the whole time while he's trying to kick it, tell him he's a worthless piece of crap, his mama's a whore, everything else in the world, just to get under his skin, get in his head, and just so he can kick with vile and anger, like where just almost like where you put more pressure on him there than he even has in a game. I don't know. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me.
Well, he likes Matt and Bubba and Kyle. We know that he likes noise. In fact, whenever it gets quiet, that's one of the things. And that was one of the things yesterday I was thinking about. Oh, man, it's on the road, but yet it's not much of a crowd there because of obvious circumstances. But, man, this week, you can better believe it's going to be that way at the stadium. It wouldn't be that way, Matt, at the Superdome, but it certainly will be that way.
Yeoman Stadium, so you're looking for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, I do that
ahead,
with I do that with my AAU basketball team. I coach for free throws. Exactly what you were describing. I have the team surrounding.
Call their mama's whores. Jesus Christ, you better calm down, Matt.
We stay away from the mama whore part, but we do yell and we scream and we talk trash, and it's designed to create pressure. So I think it's a great idea. Hey, anything that's going to work at this point, why not?
Yeah, you're talking about free throws, Matt.
Wait. Uncle Jesse told me to watch my mouth. Now, is that Uncle? If that's Uncle Jesse from Dukes of Hazzard, yes, sir. If it's Uncle Jesse off Full House, bite it.
Well, Uncle Jesse from Dukes of Hazzard is dead, so I don't think he's making any comments. But.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Whichever Uncle Jesse that's supposed to be representing.
Yeah, he's saying, no way, dude. Calling your mother a whore, really, Cal? That's wrong, dude.
I wasn't calling your mother a whore, Uncle Jesse. Your mother's a lovely lady.
Wow. Okay. So instead of sitcoms and shows from the 70s and 80s, let's talk about. I do have a topic I'm going to throw at you. I thought about this morning. Just like the Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, from yesterday. What's the good, the bad, the ugly? What do y'all have?
The good, Holton, Ahlers, and C.J. Johnson. The bad is Keaton Mitchell and Harris's injuries, and the ugly was the defense in the second half minus the fourth quarter stand. Okay, I can go for that. What about you, Matt? There was a topic I had for defense. I'm going to, after the good, the bad, the ugly, I wanted to ask you. But the good, the bad, the ugly for you, Matt, yesterday, what did you observe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good is I observed some new wrinkles in the offense that I've been literally. God, I must sound like a broken record, but I've been screaming some of the wrinkles. Yes. So I was so happy to see that. So that's the good. The bad, I would say the defense I did not think played very good yesterday at all. I thought, if you think about it, if we didn't get those two stops inside the 3-yard line, we would have given up roughly 42 points yesterday. Right. But South Florida moved the ball. I didn't think we played well on defense at all, and but they do have a better offensive line than people realize. So, but then the ugly, yesterday. I mean, I guess the ugly for me was that when it's 41-7 at half, I really was hoping to see Mason Garcia for at least a full quarter, and we never even got to that point just because they scored some quick touchdowns. So, some good, some bad from yesterday, but I'll take the win.
No doubt. Bubba, what about you? The good, the bad, the ugly. What did you observe yesterday?
As far as the good, I mean, exactly what Matt was saying, the way we went about things offensively and taking what was there, using those mismatches and CJ's ability to make the one-on-one plays against that man coverage from South Florida. And, obviously, Holton and CJ having just a monstrous day. The bad, I guess the bad would be the defenses. The bad would be our inability to run the ball on a consistent basis, even though we were more focused on the passing game yesterday. I think part of that was because of our inability to run block consistently well. And then the ugly was our defense against the pass in the second half.
You set me up nicely. I want to ask you guys about that, and starting with Matt being our defensive guy on the show. Matt, help me out, because it seemed like that we were getting beat. It was like that. I don't know if it's a home run ball, but it's a pass over the top. That was really driving me. I'm a defensive guy, Matt, even though I didn't play defense. I'm a defensive guy, and that was driving me insane yesterday to see there was, I don't know if it was 3 times, but it was more, at least 2 times. But there was times with throwing it over the top, and then, you have touchdowns. It was those big explosion plays.
Yeah, we blow coverage in the back end of our defense sometimes.
Yeah, we definitely do. But I think the biggest issue yesterday that I saw was that they blocked us well up front. Like when we would bring pressure, they blocked us well. And when you bring pressure and you get blocked, it's going to lead to big plays on the back end. South Florida does have 2 very good receivers. That kid Horn is incredibly
good, yeah.
Very fast. And then they have another kid who's really good. I can't think of his name. But so they do have some playmakers on the outside. But I thought they did it nice. I really think they did a nice job limiting our defensive line getting into the backfield. And if teams do that against a Blake Harrell scheme, it's going to be a long day, because his scheme is so predicated on bringing pressure.
Yeah, and the 91-yard touchdown pass to Jimmy Horn Jr., that was – you went back and watched that, I'm sure, Matt, I'm sure you recognized it live. It was pretty glaring. Our safety took a poor angle, and when he took a poor angle, breaking on the ball, as soon as he making the tackle, as soon as he took that poor angle, it was no doubt it was to the house.
Yeah, by the way, Uncle Jesse was asking if I played on offense. Matt, I told him I played on offense on the tailgate lots. So.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, we need offensive players everywhere.
Is Uncle Jesse a troll?
I don't know.
And I'm trying to figure out if Uncle Jesse's legit or if he's trolling us.
It's John Gilbert.
Either way.
John Gilbert.
Either way, Uncle Jesse, we appreciate you watching and listening. You mentioned about the Blake Harrell defense being so predicated on getting to the quarterback with these blitz schemes, and it leaves the back end of the defense vulnerable if you don't get to them. I'm going to tell you what right now, everybody make sure you go to the Memphis game. Memphis throws the ball all over the yard. Now, we may be able to get to their quarterback. I really don't think they're as good as their record indicates. So they had a good defensive performance yesterday, but Temple's offense is garbage. Overall, their defense isn't very good. I think that Memphis game might be a shootout. I think that could be a 41-38 type ball game. So I know we got Tulane up first, but the Memphis game for homecoming, it could be a fun game to watch. Hopefully, it just goes our way.
No doubt. And Matt, what's crazy is the bend don't break defense yesterday. Having those, how many times is now? Is it 4 times? If my memory serves me right, the goal line stances for the season. I think that's right. But man, it's crazy how we've had 4 this year, and that's something that if we're going to win close ball games, that's another way that we win close ball games is the 6 that they don't get, and then we drive it down the field, and the 6 we get. That's a huge. I know that's stating again the obvious, but that's a huge swing that if we can do that.
Definitely, and it shows that there's character in the players in the defense, and that they don't just lay down. I mean, it's a good sign when your defense continues to fight on every play. So, they're definitely very good at that. It's definitely the 4th or 5th time that I can recall, Dave. But it was big yesterday because it stopped 2 touchdowns. The turnover and then the goal line stand down there. So, awesome to see.
It may be even more than that, because I think we did it twice against NC State. We forced a fumble one time, I believe, and then we did it twice against NC State. Yeah, twice against NC State. We did it against Navy on the first drive. We did it twice yesterday. And it seems like we did it against Old Dominion also. So we're really good down there, and to me it goes to always make the play, stop them, because y'all remember it was a touchdown, then it was reviewed, and then we got the 4 down stops. So so people forget that. So always make that stop. Don't just, don't give up on the play, because that one stop at the 1 yard line, fixing with the way this defense can get up to play goal line defense sometimes. Don't give up on the play. If you can stop at the 1 or the 2, we may keep them out of the end zone.
No doubt about it. I tell you what, with Tulane, when you guys looking at the game this week, what are some keys? Obviously, we know their record, we know how good they are, but at the same time, I'll throw it out to you guys. What do you think? What are the keys to the game? I know this is the playback, but looking ahead, Tuesday night we'll have our Pirate preview. But our early preview, what do you think about Tulane? Whoever wants to take it, how do we beat them?
We're just going to have to play good on all three sides of the ball, because they're pretty good on all three sides of the ball. Their defense is much better this year. Offensively, they played 3 different quarterbacks. They just keep winning. I don't turn the ball over. I would look at some USM game film and find out what they did, and try to utilize some of that if we can. But they're a well-rounded football team. So I think we're going to have to do the same. I think we're going to have to play well on all three sides of the ball to oversimplify it.
And that's something, as far as I'm sure Southern Miss had some success with something, but they only had about 250 yards of offense in the game. So, that's something.
Take advantage of red zone opportunities, apparently, Bubba.
Yeah, must have been those red zone opportunities and the inability of Tulane cashing in, because they outgained them like 450 to 250. And then, like I said, there wasn't a glaring discrepancy in the turnover battle. But, yeah, as far as Tulane and what I saw, they have some very good skill guys. Spears and Watts stand out. And Tajay Spears, he had about 60 or 70 on the ground the other night, and then he had the game-winning touchdown reception, and I think that was one of 6 or 7 catches he had on the night. And he'll remind you of Keaton Mitchell with his speed. He may not be as fast as Keaton, but he is he's very fast, and he's very elusive. So we'll have to do a good job of keeping Tajay Spears under wraps. And we'll probably have Corey Glore on our Pirate preview on Tuesday night, and we'll talk to him more about him. But I know he's someone that he just said in the past he had not been able to stay on the field from an injury and health standpoint. But when he had been on the field, he had demonstrated that explosiveness, and we're seeing it. And the Houston Cougars and Dana Holgerson certainly saw it on Friday night.
Hey, Matt, I had a question for you, because you were, and maybe Kyle and Bubba too. When it comes to Tulane, you guys, you hit on something that I was thinking about during the game, and I totally forgot. So you mentioned earlier in the show. How about if we could do like the Jeff Blake kind of stuff? We're talking about the option with Holton, because people aren't expecting that. They're not expecting Holton to run. You were talking about that, and you're exactly right. Tulane, if we could find a way to do some wrinkles like that and some of the other things you talked about, that's we're going to have to find different ways to win the game. And also we got the fumble down there, like we talked about in the first half, and I think it's the first quarter. But those turnovers are huge, and especially we got to make sure we don't turn over the ball and force turnovers on them. Stay at the plus side.
Yeah, well, Willie Fritz is a master coach. He is an outstanding coach, and we need to have a tremendous game plan. And part of that game plan is not just coming out, or how we approach the game, but anticipating how he's going to adjust, and then we readjust. So we need to have a tremendous game plan going into that game. But, I think, and Dave, I apologize. I forgot what your question was there. But
no, I was talking about I was just making the point that you had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to mention as far as beating Tulane. I think there's a lot of, and you guys may not agree with me. It's not that I think our team is not good, so we have to be desperate and do a whole bunch of trick plays. It's not that. What I'm saying is throw in some different things like you're talking about on offense, Matt, that we haven't seen. Yep. And do some trick plays. Mike Houston is not known for a trick play. Let's throw some trick plays. I'm saying like one a game, something we're not expecting. I'm not saying like be predictable and do a whole bunch of trick plays in a game, obviously, because that's what makes it a trick play. nobody sees it coming. But man, we need to do stuff like that, because to me, fake field goal, not fake field goal, but a fake punt or anything. Well, I don't know about this year, but if it was
Yeah.
Andrew,
No, I know what you're saying, Dave. I know exactly what you're saying. And to your point, I mean, we do every week. You have to have something new that you haven't put on film. You have to. And, hey, it could be something to the effect of, you put in Marlon Gunn for a direct snap in the red zone, a wildcat type look, or, there's always some wrinkle you could put in. So I think we're going to need to have something different this week, and not be predictable. And I think that's it. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind. I feel like talent wise, Tulane is not better than us. We're right there. I mean, talent wise, I think it's a pretty equal game. But every now and then, I don't mind seeing a reverse pass type situation where you try to take a shot on a trick type play. Kyle, I know you don't love trick plays, but what are your thoughts there?
Coach Logan, baby. Don't you remember Coach Logan? We were a winner with him, and he had trick plays.
Sorry, guys. Trick plays, yeah, there's a place for them. I'm not a big fan of trick plays. I think you need to use them when you need to use them. I don't think we should have to use them to beat South Florida, and I'm not a fan of using them. I've seen times coaches use them in games that they have put away, and I always wonder, why the hell do you do that? They save that like Logan did in big spots. So these next games coming up: Tulane, UCF, Memphis, Cincinnati, BYU. These next 5 in particular, these are the kind of games that you break out a trick play. That, to me, on the road at Tulane is a good place to break out a trick play. Any of these games coming up. So yeah, I'm not against trick plays. I don't think you should have to rely on that. And Logan never did rely on it. He used them in big situations. And to me, if you're going to use them, you need to use them in big situations. And they're not going to win or lose you ball games. What they'll do is steal you a touchdown, though. And then if they're done right, to me, that's the point of a trick play: still a touchdown. So if there's an opportunity against Tulane or any of these upcoming games to run any kind of trick play, we haven't shown it. We haven't shown really much trickeration since Coach Houston's been here. It's not his thing. So if you ran one and it was executed properly, it would probably work, because nobody would really be looking for it. I mean, be a fake punt or a fake field goal, maybe, or anything like that, or something just in the passing game like a halfback pass, etc.
Hey, guess what, guys? When you have Luke Larson, number 12, and you have Holton Ahlers, number 12, I know there's different body types there, but set up for a fake field goal with Daffer. He's going to try a 45-yarder. Guys, are you nervous? Like that, and all of a sudden Holton throws it to one of the guys, and boom, you got it.
Put some fake tattoos on Holton's arms, so he looks like But the last trick play I can recall was the opening play against South Carolina last year, when I believe it was Sneed. We flared it out to Sneed, and he threw about a 60-yard bomb to Hatfield. Bubba was probably, or Bubba's the master memory guy on the show. He would probably remember that one.
No, you're right.
Yeah, that was you. Recall that very well, Matt. Tyler Sneed hitting Josiah Hatfield down the right sideline, and I remember when he let that ball go, I thought he had overthrown him, but Hatfield ran underneath it and took it to the house. But something of note, and while we're on the topic of wide receivers, yesterday Jalen Johnson went down. Fingers crossed that he'll be back and able to play this week against Tulane, because we play so few wide receivers as it is. And yesterday you only had 3 wide receivers play, and after Jalen Johnson went down, it was C.J. Johnson and then Isaiah Winstead getting all the snaps, because you had Shane Calhoun and Ryan Jones in there when we were going 4 wide. So that's something I would like to know. Obviously, we're very strong at tight end. I understand why those guys are on the field so much. Even back in the day, going back to the Logan years, when when you would have Troy Smith and Lamont Chappell, and different ones seeing the majority of the snaps, you still had guys like Linwood DeBrew that would, play 5 to 10, 15 snaps a ball game. So that's something I found pretty interesting.
No doubt about it. I tell you, you guys, when we're doing a guy that we do a lot for offensive line. In fact, Jeff Charles talked about yesterday the fact that you have guys it's not that they're not talented. They're just young, Matt, and you and Bubba can appreciate it. They're young and they're not prime time. It doesn't mean they're never going to be ready. Not that when it comes to I know we had a all signing class this year, but I'm hoping that we can get some more offensive linemen if it's transfer portal.
Well, Dave, you're cutting out there for a second, but I agree. You can never have enough offensive linemen, and we every year. I love the recipe here at East Carolina. You develop a few guys from high school. You try to bring in a portal guy if you can, maybe a grad transfer like a Justin Red. But one thing I wanted to mention that we really haven't talked about, and it's been kind of hush hush, is the loss of Bailey Malovic, guys. He was projected to be our starting left tackle before the season. I know he had a family tragedy, and you hate to hear that. You hate to hear it. But that's a big loss for the team. By all accounts, he's not with the team anymore. Justin Red, guys, when he was player of the year in the MEAC, he was a right guard. He had never played left tackle before, especially on this level. So now you have a situation where, we probably could have platooned at the left tackle between Malovic and Red. And now he's kind of forced to go the whole game. So, we're just not at a situation here where we can afford to lose guys. And that loss of Malovic, you just hate to see. You hate it for him. You really hate it for that kid because he's been through a lot with the ACL, and then, he tragically lost a family member. So I'd love to see him find a way back to the team. I don't know if that's in the cards. I don't know anything about it, but it's a big loss.
You're absolutely right, and I didn't know until you said this week, mentioning in our group text about that very fact. I didn't know anything about it, that he wasn't with the team anymore. I knew about the tragedy. I thought he was just taking his time away from that. But it's just so much fun, to cover this team, and when you see situations like that where we thought that the wide receiver issue as far as depth, and it turns out that's been one of our strengths. And then one area, guys, we thought we would be rock solid would be offensive line. It's not that we don't have quality guys, but another thing that I want to mention is Justin Red's going to be gone next year. You have, I believe Avery Jones, does he have one more year or is he gone? But that's going to be another thing as far as experienced guys playing line. We can't worry about next year. I know as far as like we're in the season now, but man, if you're on that board, I was going to say draft board, I'm thinking about the NFL, but if you're on that board and you're thinking about all your recruits, man, we've got to make sure that we're getting, like we said, that recipe of a lineman or two from the portal, plus really working hard. And if there's anybody that can do it, it's Coach Shank, but man, that's something that is really a concern to me. It was already a little bit of a concern, but it's more of a concern as of this week, learning about Malovic, and then also the number of guys. We're only playing 6. So anyway, do you guys have anything before we go? I know we're running a little long tonight, but certainly we appreciate all the listeners and viewers. It means a lot. You guys are amazing, and maybe you guys have welcome in Craig to the show. I see he's there, but if you have any questions or comments for us or to the group, then put it on Facebook and certainly on YouTube as well.
Yeah, Dave, taking a look around the American, and Kyle referenced that game with Navy, part of the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. Obviously heading out to Air Force, they fell 13-10 yesterday. He talked about the Memphis Temple game. Temple was up 3-0 at halftime, and then Memphis rolled in the second half. Temple just they're really struggling offensively. Had just 7 first downs in the game to go with 3 turnovers, 2 out of 16 on third down. Their defense, like I mentioned, limited Memphis to 330 yards and generated 5 sacks. So the Owls are very good on defense. But Memphis won that game 24-3. And then you had Cincinnati winning at Tulsa, and the Bearcats are 24th in this week's AP poll. And Coach Fickle and the Bearcats were 31-21 winners at Tulsa last night after leading 24-14 at halftime.
Yeah, the games that are going on, I tell you, when you look around the league, in fact, I know Bubba, you said with Cincinnati's 24th this week, certainly you obviously would think that they would be a little bit higher. Tulane, they're right up there. And one of the biggest surprises for me, guys, is this year has been, I know Matt's favorite coach, but Dana Holgorsen. I do have one more topic I was going to throw at you guys, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But to me, the biggest disappointment, which we're not surprised the guys on this show, is Houston. We don't have anything personally against the university, but Dana Holgorsen is one of the most overrated coaches in America. And I have a topic after Bubba because of Dana Holgorsen and another coach that fits that bill. After we go through the American, I wanted to mention that before we get out of here. Go ahead, Bubba. I'm sorry.
No, that's all the scores from around the American, but taking a look at some of the things that caught my eye nationally, you had TCU. TCU and Coach Dykes, first season there in Fort Worth, they'd gotten off to an excellent start, but they had a different challenge yesterday with Oklahoma, who had just gotten beat at home by K-State.
Mm-hmm.
I was very eager to see how Brent Venables' Sooners responded to that home loss to the Wildcats, and they went to Fort Worth and absolutely got bombarded by the Horned Frogs. Max Duggan, the quarterback for TCU, had, I think, something like 450 or 500 yards of total offense. And the Horned Frogs under OC Garrett Riley, which was very unique, and Garrett Riley going against his brother's former school before opting to move on to USC. TCU won that one 55-24.
Yeah, that was a shocker to me. I mean, not so much that TCU won. I expected a close game.
Right.
The way they went about it, I mean, they just absolutely destroyed Oklahoma, and so very impressive there. And I'll tell you guys, the one that really blew me away, just like that one, was the fact that Missouri had Georgia on the ropes deep into the fourth quarter, and Georgia looked invincible to me the first part of the season, and Missouri was terrible. Missouri has not been good, but that's just a prime example. It's a prime example that in college football, if you're not ready to go, anybody can beat you. And Georgia was lucky to get out of there with a W last night. And, they had been number one. I think now you're going to see Alabama reclaim the top spot, which I think they already may have. And Georgia will drop down to number 2.
Or maybe number 3 with Ohio State. You're a Big Ten guy. Matt, I tell you, one of the games that really caught my eye was one of the games that I was interested in. It's the Alabama. Speaking of Alabama, the Alabama-Arkansas game. You have the Alabama quarterback go down in an injury. The second string guy comes on, and I looked up. I was messing around my phone, texting you guys, and I looked up, and all of a sudden that kid, I don't know about his arm, but that second string quarterback at Alabama, his name escapes me right now, but he ran that touchdown, was unbelievable. And you want to talk about a dagger in the heart. That was a 28-23 ball game early in the fourth. And all of a sudden, you want to talk about a momentum swing. That was the that's the understatement of the century with that touchdown run. Didn't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it must be nice to have five stars as your backup players. There's sometimes when you're 3 deep at Alabama, you have 5 stars that are like literally sitting the bench there. But that kid's just a phenomenal athlete. You can see the athletic ability, and yeah, I mean, hey, Alabama, they always find a way. I mean, they just always find a way, and they have guys just stacked at every position, and so you got to give them credit. But yeah, I agree. That kid was very impressive.
So, and Matt, by the way, this is another topic I just remembered I didn't talk about is, and I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to give you 3 teams that have surprised me this year. You ready? The most obvious one for me is Kansas, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
They're 5-0, and people can say whatever they want to, but Kansas competing in the Big 12. Are you kidding me? We're not talking about basketball. Number 2 would be Duke, and obviously Kansas beat Duke, so you can't put Duke number 1. It's like my biggest surprise. And then number 3, another team that you mentioned last week, and you beat me to it, and I feel like you stole my thunder, but that's okay. We're buddies. I'll get over it. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding for people watching and listening. It's Syracuse. Those 3 schools, man, I'm telling you, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year in the summertime, if Matt came to me and says Kansas, Duke, and Syracuse are going to be good, Dave, this year, I would have laughed at you, and I have a lot of respect for you, but I would have laughed on that one.
I wouldn't have blamed you. Because who would have ever thought? I mean, especially Kansas. I mean, you talk about what a turnaround, right? What a turnaround. I mean, I think those are 3 great examples. And then, you know, you see TCU and then how about UCLA, who I am fan of.
Course.
I'm no fan of Pac-12 football. I I'm very open about that, but UCLA has really, shocked me as well. So quite a few teams around the country. I've been surprised at just how bad Wisconsin has been. And I know Craig Doucette just mentioned, in the chat that, Craig's got a few good ones. I just want to take a second. So Craig mentioned that Wisconsin fired their coach today, which is incredibly rare at Wisconsin. I mean, they've had probably 3 coaches in the last 30 years. So that's very rare. And then I got to give Craig props too for his Little Giants reference. If you've ever seen the movie Little Giants, Craig made a reference to that as well. So some good points there, but definitely some surprising situations.
No doubt. And by the way, and you're going to be proud of me because I didn't do my homework as far as research. Actually, listen to the guys on SiriusXM. If you have ESPNU radio on SiriusXM, it's one of my favorite channels. And they were doing the show today, and Tom Luganbill, and they were talking about the Big Ten West. And how about this? Purdue beats Minnesota yesterday, and there was 7 teams. So 6 out of the 7 teams in the West are tied for first place, except for wait for it, Wisconsin. And they were talking about Wisconsin, which is strange how Wisconsin is not first or second in that division. But, man, they have tough times there in Madison. But, Matt, I follow – because of you, I've been paying more attention to Big Ten football. And for the West to have 6 out of 7, I knew it was competitive. But you want to talk about parity, that Big Ten West is probably number 1 on my list this year.
Yeah, that side of the division's wide open, and it seems like all the power is, you look at on the other side with, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, right? And it's definitely wide open. But yeah, I mean, I personally love the Big Ten, Dave. I think one of the reasons I love it so much is because the elements play a part. Especially now as you get into October, you start to see the cold weather. You start to see, like yesterday at Penn State, there were like 10 turnovers in that game. Just a cold, rainy, sleet conditions. And then when the snow kicks in, it's even more fun, in my opinion. So, yeah, hey, I'm glad I'm making a fan out of you, buddy, to bring a little attention to the Big Ten.
Hey, Bubba, real quick before I pitch it to you, Bubba, I was looking at the schedule for Duke, and we had Will on from Clemson on Thursday night. He was talking about Duke's schedule, and I'm going to take up for Duke real quick. You guys ready? He was talking about, oh man, it's a nice story, but the schedule gets harder for them, and of course they can lose. They're 4-1. They can lose the next 7 games. Anything is possible, right? But check this out. They have they're at Georgia Tech this week. That's a good chance they can get a W then. And I tell you one thing, North Carolina, they have this family weekend for Duke at Wallace Wade. Now, that North Carolina team, maybe they can score some points, but I'd love to see Mike Elko's defense versus that offense for North Carolina at Miami, at Boston College, 2 teams that haven't been playing very well. You have Virginia Tech. The last 2 games at Pitt and the home game against Wake Forest, those last 2 games will be the only games left on the schedule that really scare me as far as I don't think they have a chance. But anyway, I'm not a Duke show, but I wanted to make a point, Bubba, with Will acting like that, basically they had all the wins. I don't think he meant it that way, but I know the schedule is not easy, but it's not the Duke team I expected this year to where it was going to be like a 3-9, 2-10 kind of season.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I, out of curiosity, took a look at the Blue Devils' remaining schedule as well once they posted like a 38-17 win over UVA last night. Like you said, I mean, a lot of games that could go either way, and a bunch of those. Yes, the Blue Devils may be a slight dog, but really none of them would shock me if Duke was mild upsets, and based on the schedule that you rattled off and the way Virginia Tech is struggling offensively. You mentioned Miami and the way they've been Jekyll and Hyde. And, Georgia Tech, obviously. But hey, Georgia Tech. Tough to figure, but after firing their AD and Jeff Collins, the head coach, they went up and won at Pittsburgh. Who would have ever thought that, man? It's frustrating. I mean, this is certainly in no way, shape, or form, rationalize any shortcomings that we've had. But you thought we were frustrated last week. A very similar situation. Can you imagine how Pitt fans feel, losing to Georgia Tech at home? Expecting to compete and win the Coastal Division and play for an ACC title and win an ACC title.
No doubt. And I was thinking about too with UVA, and I know Alice puts up UVA and Virginia Tech have new coaches. Would Old Dominion be the best team right now, or Liberty, one of those 2 teams in the Commonwealth? I mean, I don't know. I just that's something that hit me.
A lot of fairly mediocre football being played, or less than mediocre football being played in the Commonwealth.
No doubt. Hey, by the way, guys, Matt, I think Bubba's getting a call. I'm going to pitch this to you. So, to me, I'm going to start off this part, and then we'll get out of here, I promise. To me, thank you, Craig. Jay, of you, of course. I don't know what I was thinking. I need to go to bed. Thank you, Craig. Craig is we have the smartest listeners and viewers out there for sure. I want to get your opinion, those of you listening and watching, and of course, Bubba and Matt. To me, the most overrated coach in all of college football. Are you waiting for it? I call him Jumbo because I think his ego is Jumbo big time. That's why I call him Jumbo. Jimbo Fisher is the most overrated coach in all of America. So, Matt, I'm going to put you on the spot, and then Bubba, whichever one wants to go first. Before we get out of here, who is the most overrated football coach in college football?
Whew, that is a great.
Or is it or your favorite, Dana Holgorsen?
Whew, that is a great question, man. I need to give that some thought. I mean, okay. I'll be one that might, a program that nobody talks about ever, and a guy that's been there for about 100 years that I feel like he keeps them steady but never really wins much. I'll go with Kirk Ferentz at Iowa.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Their offense is just abysmal every year. It's terrible. And I don't know. I just feel like Iowa's underachieving a little bit. as a program. So I'll go with Kirk Ferentz.
Yeah.
And Dave, very quickly, as far as going back to your question about the Commonwealth, like Johnny Robertson, Jay Cutler, and Craig Doucette, who has a child that goes to JMU. I'd say JMU hands down is the best team. It's JMU, and I'd say, and Liberty's right there as well. But James Madison has looked very good, and I guess 5-0, something like that. 4 or 5-0 now. But
I'm a huge fan of Cignetti. I forgot. Forgive me, Craig. It wasn't a slight on JMU. I'm a big fan of that university.
And then another score from yesterday. I think y'all probably talked about this when my phone died because Craig brought it up in the comments. But he's talking about Wisconsin firing head coach Paul Chryst. They parted ways with him, which wasn't stunning. Maybe a little surprising at the timing, but hey, they don't like losing at Camp Randall 34-10 to Illinois, especially when the Illini are led by their former coach.
Well, here's the thing, Bubba. The reason you missed out on the because of your phone was I was saying the reason why I think they did is because the biggest parity in college football as far as a division is that Big Ten West. 6 out of 7 schools now are tied for first place except for Wisconsin. So when you have 6 out of 7 schools that are tied for first place and you're not one of them, considering where you've been top of the mountain as far as that division normally, or one of the first or second, then I could see why they've had hard times. But who is your most overrated coach, Bubba? You followed the game, I know, extremely close. I was saying Jimbo Fisher to me is the most overrated. I think every time you turn around, they gave him that 10-year deal, $75 million. They're giving him, he's getting all these 5-star recruits. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the SEC is an easy conference by any stretch of the imagination. But considering the recruits he has, the facilities, can you imagine, guys, if we had the facilities that Texas A&M had?
Yeah, a lot of people would love to have their money, but it's not going to happen. But I'm going on the opposite end of the spectrum, and he had his chance to go to the SEC with Oklahoma, but opted to go to USC. But it would be interesting to see what a Lincoln Riley, or another coach like that would be able to do at Texas A&M. And obviously they felt like they had their Lincoln Riley, so to speak, with Jimbo Fisher. And who knows, they may still prove to be that they do. But there's certainly plenty of doubters now, and rightfully so, because I saw a stat saying that his record after this amount of games into his tenure is the exact same record as what it was for Kevin Sumlin.
Wow, Bob. I was thinking about during our game yesterday, I was thinking about Kevin Sumlin. That's crazy. Well, yeah, I was wondering about, and he, of course, went to, I believe, Arizona and got fired there. But let's get out of here. Agree, Bubba. We've been long, and I appreciate everybody. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Kevin Walker, KK, one of the best ever to put on that purple and gold at East Carolina. He's a licensed contractor, and with L&K Custom Homes, they're our title sponsor. Appreciate them very much. 336-688-8461. Appreciate their support of the program. How about Porky's Backyard Barbecue? Want to appreciate the Holiday Brothers, and they're everywhere, man. You can cater, you can go there, you can dine in, drive through. 252-661-0337. If you're familiar with Williamston, it was the Captain D's in front of the old Walmart shopping center. They call it Roanoke Landing, and that's where they are. They've got great food. Check them out. They're open daily 11 to 8. And finally, last but certainly not least, another great supporter of the show. I'm talking about pgxgloves.com. Mark Menakazi. Kaz has been so good to us the last few years, and want to give him a shout out for everything that they do for pgxgloves.com. In fact, you can click on the promo code and just type in ECU, and that would be that 25% off. You get the discount for custom baseball gloves. They got batting gloves, football gloves, swag, and so much more. So appreciate that for everything. All right. Thanks to Andrew Bays, our guests, and of course, Kyle and Bubba, Matt. Appreciate you guys so much. Let's get out of here. Until next time, you've been watching the Pirate Playback, brought to you by L&K Custom Homes right here on the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.
You've been watching the Pirate Football Playback on the Sports Objective. Join us next Sunday night on our YouTube channel and Facebook Live as we talk East Carolina football. Follow us on social media at The Sports OBJ on Twitter and TikTok, at The Sports Objective on Instagram. Please like and follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you listening to the show. Go Pirates!
Keep a plank on the shark tank, traders beware, because we got a whole bunch of rowdy sailors in here.